The Southeastern Wildlife Exposition returns in February for another exciting year. I talk one-on-one with John Powell, the president and CEO of SEWE, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. John Powell, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks, Quintin. It's great to be here.
I appreciate it greatly. Needless to say, you are the president and CEO of the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition, and I know that you got that particular job as president and CEO a couple of years ago. And we all here in the Low Country know that the Southeastern Wildlife Exposition, better known as SEWE, is a free-day event that celebrates wildlife and all of nature's beauty. So let me ask you this, John. What is your snapshot right now of the 2024 SEWE Festival?
Well, I think we're expecting big crowds, Quintin. I think people have grown to love our event. One of the things we always do is we try to replicate what we've done in the past and make sure that we offer the same things to those attendees that are returning, but also add in a little bit of the new. But we'll have nearly 100 wildlife artists here present with their work, painters, sculptors, carvers,
Wow.
And another 400 exhibitors spread out all over downtown Charleston.
Wow. And I'm sitting in downtown Charleston right now. So let me ask you, what are you replicating from the past that you're bringing into the future for this festival this year?
So what we try to do is keep the same exhibit site template, not only the downtown, 5 different exhibit sites, but also within those sites. We make it best effort to, make it easier for the crowds, for walking traffic and things of that nature within the sites. So we'll make subtle changes. And then you'll also see that we rotate, probably 30% of our artists and exhibitors every year to keep it fresh. So while even a returning artist will bring, a whole body of work of new paintings, so those will all be new to anyone in attendance. You can say the same thing for exhibitors. They bring new products, especially those that are making original, call it a wood turner or a knife maker. These true craftsmen or craftspeople that have wares that are unique, original, and only going to be seen at SEWE.
Wow. So how many returning artists do you have for 2024?
Returning, we probably have about 55 returning, and then maybe 20 that are new, and then some that they're not returning from last year. They may come every couple of years,
Right.
Every 3-4 years. One of the things about our show is that even before the tourists come into town, attendees come into town to stay at the hotels and dine at restaurants and that sort of thing. Our artists and our exhibitors that are not local, they're here for 4 days, essentially. They're coming in Wednesday or Thursday, they're setting up, and they're here until Monday morning, a lot of them. So they're already having a push on hotels and things of that nature.
So with that push and those people coming in, earlier for that 4-day, for the 3-day event, staying for an extra day, what are those subtle changes that you're making to the festival this year?
So you take Brittlebank Park. I mean, that's the sort of the obvious one. That's become such a great venue. There's so many. We have a lot of lifestyle brands there. We have our dogs. We have retriever demonstrations. We have a lot of our corporate partners. Like a Purina that's set up there. It's just natural for them because there's so many dogs at SEWE, and they're a great partner. Try to figure out a way to control the crowd. One of the things that we don't ever want to do, we don't want to have to raise ticket prices, as a control. We don't want to have to cap tickets, even though that we probably will someday. So it's creating lanes of traffic, so more people can get up and down the park, with ease. It's a long rectangular park, as you know. So it takes a while to work your way from one end to another, and so trying to figure out a way where people can get through there, more easily. You get a place like Marion Square that's free and open to the public. How do we create room for people to get in and out of there easily? The Center for Birds of Prey demonstrations, they're 5 people deep, but it's not practical for us to try to bring in bleachers because you need a certain amount of room for the birds. These little tricky things. People ask, what can't you do bleachers? Well, the short answer is no, or you move it to another venue, but then this becomes more difficult to manage. So every year we tackle these problems and we make the subtle changes that we can. And if we can't, we just try to explain that this is where this needs to be. And most everyone that comes to SEWE has a pretty enthusiastic spirit, and they understand it's going to be a little crowded.
But John, over the years, and you've been with the festival now for close to 20 years, what are those most top events that are making those festivals or those events hard to produce?
Well, everything's got harder, right, Quentin? The regulations, just like in any business, the regulations that are set forth by the state and the city, while understandable, also make it a little bit more difficult. And trying to explain those to our exhibitors that's set up. The investment level makes it difficult for, again, to stay in a hotel room, to dine in Charleston. It's not inexpensive. And so if you're here to work like these artists and exhibitors, you have to look at that investment level and say, is it going to be worth it to me? But the flip side of that is the economic impact that we provide. And we want people to come here and spend that money in hotels and restaurants, et cetera.
So what has that investment level been over the past couple of years post-COVID?
Well, if we talk about our economic impact, which we're very proud of, it's nearly 33 million. And you work your way back to the investment level, really depends on the individual artist or exhibitor or attendee. Whether you're staying on the outskirts of the city, or we have people that stay all the way into North Charleston, Somerville, because the rates are going to drop a little bit at certain properties, not all. We have some people that stay at the beaches, and so your investment level depends on what you can manage. There are a lot of high-end restaurants in Charleston that are full that weekend. Then there are other people that are, again, they're here to work, and so they might be packing in their food and that sort of thing. So, we cater to the full demographic. We really do. We've got families that travel here for a one-day trip, and then we've got people that are, flying in, early on Wednesday or Thursday to really look at the art, and they may not even stay the whole weekend. So it's very difficult to dial in, one sort of spending behavior or habit at SEWE.
And you talk about demographics. How much has that changed since COVID, John?
I think since COVID, I don't know that it's changed, Quentin. I think, our last survey is very similar to those that are prior to COVID. I think you have people of a certain mindset that, are going to come regardless of, whether or not there's a pandemic or not, or they want to anyway. So, our demographic hasn't changed a whole lot. We have seen more people. And I think a lot of events, have seen that. Our ticket sales right now are flat compared to last year, which is okay, because we had a lot of people last year. And at a certain point, you don't want to bend the infrastructure in downtown Charleston any more than you have to. It's a tough balance to bring the people here, but also not make it so full that people can't enjoy their experience.
So when you look back over history, say year to year, how many years have you all been in a situation where ticket sales have actually been flat?
Very, very rarely. We've increased nearly every year, and that's just pre-sales. One of the things that we've had the luxury of, Quentin, is that Southeastern Wildlife Exposition, used to be this little engine that could, this show that some people knew about. Now we have such a brand presence. You don't run into a lot of people, at least in the wildlife art world, or whether it's conservation or sporting lifestyle, that don't know about SEWE. Call it the internet or whatever you want to do. So one of the things that we continue to do is advertise our brand, and we advertise Charleston. The event can speak for itself in a lot of ways. So, when we're sending out emails or we're working on with social media, we want people to know what SEWE is and what they can do while they're in Charleston. We're not necessarily driving tickets. So, look, I expect tickets to be above last year. That there's always an influx here in the next 2 weeks when we stop selling February 1st. So, we're really at the tipping point. So we don't want to sell a lot more tickets. We want to continue to make the experience better for attendees across the full demographic.
Wow. And with those ticket sales, John, this might be kind of complicated, but where do you exactly see these people purchasing tickets from? Where are they coming from in your mind?
Yeah. So you, as you might expect, South Carolina leads, then it's North Carolina, Georgia, and then you get into Florida, Virginia, you get into those states, and then it extends to the Southeast. You can look to direct flights. Explore Charleston's done an incredible job of providing these, or help lobby to get these direct flights in, and you can see the impact. If it's less than $200, somebody hop on a plane and come to Charleston, they're going to come to SEWE, rather than having to connect.
Right.
And then we've got people from all over the country. It wasn't that long ago where we had a representative from all 50 states at SEWE, which is great. I don't know where the Hawaiian came from, but it was fun to check that box. And so we monitor that, and it costs. it's a lot of investment if you target a market. Say if we went, Texas is a great feeder for Charleston, but if we went after a specific city, it's pretty expensive. So we continue to do a sort of a broad regional and then Southeast advertising, but we also are in a ton of national publications, either direct advertising or editorial, or people that, that know about SEWE and know about our artists.
Wow. I hope you eventually get a target Nashville and bring some people there. Everybody knows I love Nashville.
we've got them coming from Nashville. We've got I think for the last 10 to 15 years, we've had at least someone who's from Nashville working in our office. So I think our cities have a lot in common.
Oh yeah, similar cities, absolutely. So John, how do you keep up with that growth, with smart growth?
We try to react. We get ahead of things as much as we can. Like I said, until we cap tickets, at some point we learn lessons every year, and we learn lessons from top down and bottom up. We work, whether it's transportation, crowds. We have breakdowns with the city afterwards, the parks department. Were there any security issues? All these things. And so, like I said, we don't really want to grow anymore. We're fortunate right now. We're in a great position. We have incredible corporate sponsors that come every year. They see the value in what we do. They have client entertainment, and they can hang their hat on the educational piece, the art piece, all the things that we do. So I think we're now in a mode where it's a little bit like the challenges that Charleston faces, especially Peninsula Charleston. Where are you do you want to grow? How do we make the experience better? And I think that's going to be a lot of our focus, over the next 5 years is, how do we make this the premier show? There's not really anyone like us. There are other smaller shows that are similar to SEWE, but there used to be, 20 or 30 across the nation, and we're really the last one left. And a lot of that is because of Charleston. People want to come to Charleston, and Charleston becomes part of SEWE and vice versa. Our exhibit sites, you can walk right out and experience Charleston, and then you got your ticket on, you walk right back in. So it's a special thing that we've been able to balance. But we want to make it so that we don't want people to say, oh, it's too crowded, I don't want to come. So we'll be facing those over the next 4 or 5 years. And I think we're at a really strong number. Our economic impact is strong. If we can get people to invest more in Charleston while they're here, great. But we're happy with where we are.
And I know you're happy where you are, and you really can't grow too much. But internally, how do you build your organization's capacity?
You mean from an internal, like from working internally here?
Yes, sir.
Or like number of employees?
Oh, yeah, that too.
Sure. We don't have. I mean, look, everything that we just covered also assumes that it's going to be 3 days of sunshine and. It's going to be great. The other part we didn't talk about when you said where people come from, call it 50-50. Some years it's 60-40. Either way, if there's a great weather day, it's a snowball effect, right? There are going to be guys that are hanging out downtown. They're in the ballroom at Charleston Place, or 3 couples are hanging out at Riddlebank, and they call their friends and they come down, and it just becomes almost too much. So, but we faced snow before. Rain, wind, frigid temperatures. So we don't take for granted that while we know sort of what our max is, we want to hit that. If we have a weather event, we can struggle, certainly. And when when our artists and exhibitors, take a hit, from weather or economy, we feel it too. Fortunately, not all of our show by any means is outside, even though a lot of the imagery shows that. The core of our show is wildlife art, and it's Charleston Place, and always will be. So a rain event doesn't always hurt those artists or the exhibitors there in the Gilliard Center.
And I wanted to ask you this earlier, John, but how exactly do you keep the core of the festival consistent?
Well, you just don't mess with it. You don't mess it up. I mean, from the founding, and first show in 1983, it was built on wildlife art and artists, and they took a chance. Those artists that came that year took a chance, and there were 5,000 people, and it worked out well. We built on that. If you keep wildlife art at the core, conservation, lifestyle brands, artisans and craftsmen can all build out from there. But to be able to bring these 100 artists in from all over the country with original works, and for them to be there with their work for 3 days is so incredibly unique. And for us to do it on the scale that we do it, and people want to see that, and it adds the air of quality. You know, our black tie, our gala, our signature gala on Thursday night is a real celebration, not just of the artists, but of Charleston, of South Carolina. You know, the people that are in the room that night, it's really special. Oh, yeah. So I think if you keep that quality and don't mess with that core, you can make subtle changes to other exhibit sites or, you know, what you offer to the general public outside of that.
And what parts of SEWE do you want to adjust in the future due to the fact that, unfortunately, wildlife art is actually dying?
Well, you know, that's the thing we're finding. It's not dying. You know, wildlife art is, you know, it's the oldest art form. It's the most original art form, right? You make that argument. So I think that it'll never die. It's more challenging in the sense that, you know, you always hope that we can get the next generation in the outdoors and to participate in conservation and to become artists. You know, we need them, but we have great up and comers. And what we've seen over the last couple of years, you know, during COVID and post, is that sales are extremely strong. And whether that's SEWE specific, you know, or some of the artists that are here we're doing a good job of recruiting. I don't know, but you know, our support of the genre is felt, you know, by each artist that's here. You know, even if they don't sell well, which we hope never happens, they know that we put an incredible amount of effort and investment into setting the stage for a national show for them to sell work. And and it goes both ways. Again, I mentioned they invest to come here and to exhibit. So, you know, we want to fight that idea that it's fading at all. I mean, I think, you know, you can lump something in with, you know, any sort of art form. You know, I think we're seeing some real positive trends in the world of wildlife art. We're going to hang on to those.
So what are the wildlife art trends that you and your team are currently looking at?
Well, it's just you have to engage with the buyer, right? You know, you know, print advertising is not dead. We know that. You know, some of the print, some of the magazines we work with, whether it's Western Art Collector or you know, obviously local favorite Garden and Gun, we've run original works in these print ads, and you know, we get a phone call and someone says, "I want it." We can help facilitate that sale for the artist, and it's to continue to educate youth in schools. You know, if we in our youth programs, Kids for Conservation, our support of Junior Duck Stamp. So you know, we're pushing the genre best we can.
Yeah, and I know sometimes, John, SEWE lets a piece of fine art of the lifestyle image speaks for itself. So what piece of fine art or lifestyle image actually speaks for SEWE today?
Well, I like to think that our featured image every year, you know, has some, you know, it's very exciting. It sets the tone for the show, you know, and well, I've spoken about it with several people. Family Outing is the name of the piece by Kathleen Dunphy, our featured artist. And it's a goose with goslings in the water, and it speaks to the generational aspect. And, you know, I mentioned this in my welcome letter. They'll be printed in the directory, and I've said it to others. You know, we have a second generation staff member that works for SEWE. We have second generation board members. Our part-time staff that works during the weekend. We have third generation working, you know, selling merchandise, and so when you look at this again, this generational aspect, you'll see that it's not an individual passion among someone. It becomes a family deal, and that speaks to the strength of the show, and I think what'll guarantee that we're strong moving forward. And so that was a long answer, very specific about this year's featured piece, but I try to pull some inspiration, usually not difficult, from that piece and let it define us.
And lastly, John, what wildlife do you want to help promote over the next few years with the SEWE platform?
That's a great question, and we get that from time to time. So we have organizations that are near and dear to our heart. The Center for Birds of Prey, that's right here in our backyard. They do incredible work. You know, they literally closed down the center for 3 days to bring birds here to educate, to provide free, you know, educational entertainment to the city of Charleston and beyond. And they're a mainstay. So we, you know, every year we want to help them do well. But then, you know, last year was the first year that the National Marine Mammal Foundation was part of SEWE, and coincidentally, we were introduced with this organization by Kathleen Dunphy, our featured artist this year. And so that also speaks to how art and conservation, can be tied together. But the National Marine Mammal Foundation has, an office, right here in our backyard on Johns Island. They do great work, response and education, and the list goes on. And so we find out about an organization like this. We try to help promote them, whether we put them on the stage at the Gill Yard, we work with them in a special event, and then we don't know who's next. We have scores of conservation organizations here every year. We can't promote them all at the same level, so we try to put our weight where we can behind one, and then they find their footing and they find a way to engage with volunteers, to fundraise on their own during SEWE, and they become a part of the fabric, and they're here every year. So I don't know what's next. We can claim a lot of great accolades that we don't, always promote, and that's, land conservation that we've done, through Ducks Unlimited. Again, the amount of money that we help raise these national organizations, because of the show, it's incredible and something we're very proud of.
Yes, sir. And I know, obviously, you've been with SEWE for almost 20 years now. Hey there. How have you actually grown professionally because of the festival?
I don't know. I think any of my friends watching might say that I haven't. You learn. What we do is so very specific and so very niche. You just learn along the way. I'm not an event planner by education. I'm not. I don't know the most about wildlife art. I know what I love, and I think I've learned to figure out how to balance the experience between attendee and exhibitor and artist and corporate partner. I've met a lot of incredible people. What we do, we are in the community in so many different ways, but from the state all the way down to local support, where, like I mentioned before, call it the Parks Department. I get to meet all these great people and work with them and befriend them, and we rely on them for advice, whether it's something they saw that was wrong or something that we're not doing well. And I think I've learned to understand that and take these lessons every year. I always hate when we mess up, even something so small, because we have to wait 362 days to fix it or to show people that we fix it. But that also makes it fun, and we take the responsibility of our mission very seriously, and we take our support of, again, the city, county, state, and the other municipalities that support us very seriously, and we want everyone to be rewarded, whether financially or from experience or inspiration at SEWE every year.
John Powell with Southeastern Wildlife Exposition. Thank you for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin.
You're welcome.